So, a sheep ranch. I wish I had a photo of it. There is actually an aerial photo. It's hanging in my mother's office, but I didn't go over there and take a snap of it to use this today. He owned almost a section, he had almost 600 acres, and he raised sheep, and he also raised alfalfa to feed the sheep, and he would sell the alfalfa, which is a good cash crop. But the thing about sheep is they're really dumb. They are really dumb, really, really dumb. They will get frightened and pack themselves up against the fence, and some of them can suffocate. You've seen what they look like when they're full of wool, right? They're very fluffy. Only it's pretty dense. And so don't scare the sheep. That's the first thing. Don't scare the sheep because, you could have a stampede on your hands and one of them could break a leg, or they could all they do follow each other. And if they're following the wrong sheep, all bets are off. It's not a pretty sight. And I told you that my uncle also had fields of alfalfa that he raised to feed the sheep with. And the thing about alfalfa is it's really pretty. It's very attractive, and it smells good to sheep. They like alfalfa real good. They cannot eat fresh alfalfa, though. It seems like kind of a not fair thing, but if they eat fresh alfalfa, they could die. It's too rich. It's too much. And so we had to make sure that the gates were always closed, so if the sheep got out and they got into the alfalfa field, they would eat too much and die. Now, I'm not going to go into too many details if you want to ask me about it later, but basically it involves eating so much. They have 4 or 5 stomachs, I forget how many. They eat too much and it causes gas, and they bloat and they roll over on their backs with their legs sticking up like this, and that's all she wrote. So you have to keep the gates closed because they're not smart. Are you catching this? The sheep are not smart. So don't scare them. Keep them in the gate. Don't let them in the alfalfa. They require a lot of care. And here's something you might not have known. Don't breathe around them if they get wet. They have something in their wool called lanolin. You might have heard of lanolin. It's the oil that little sheep bodies make. And the wool is infused with lanolin. And if it gets wet and you breathe it, you could get pneumonia. Sheep are really special. They're really special. And I like Pastor Andy's message this morning because you know what? We're the sheep. Yikes. We're not the smart ones. We're the sheep. Oh. Okay, God, we're humbled now. So, keeping that in mind, let us rise for the reading of God's Word. Very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said, again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. May God add his blessing to this reading of his word. You may be seated. So, what is happening here in this story? Whenever you read a passage of scripture, I want you to think about what's happening here and why is Jesus saying this? Well, this story immediately follows a conversation on spiritual blindness. Now, what happens if you're blind? You can't see, right? That's being blind. But if you can't see, what do? You run into things. You break your toe. That's what I did once. I wasn't blind, but I broke my toe because I wasn't looking. So if you're blind, bad things happen. You can't tell where you're going. You don't know if you're going in the right way or the wrong way and what's going to happen. So that's what happens if you're blind. That's why Jesus was talking to the Pharisees right now. He said, listen, guys, this is for you. So to summarize what we just heard, the sheep know their shepherd. The sheep know the shepherd's voice. The sheep will follow the shepherd. They will never follow a stranger. In fact, if they hear a stranger's voice, they most likely will go, and then they'll all be off, following each other, running. They don't know where they're going, right? And Jesus said, I am the gate. And Jesus said, I will keep everybody safe who comes through me. So we need to think about, what does that mean? You'll be safe. I want to feel safe. I do. I want to feel fearful or like I'm in constant danger. Like when I was teaching my teenagers how to drive a car. That was really scary. I did not like that feeling. I want to feel safe. That's I know, I feel your pain. We've got teenage drivers. Okay, the sheep who come through this gate will have everything a sheep needs. The shepherd will lead the sheep, daily grass, hospitality in the middle of the desert. Now, you all live in a desert. We live in kind of a modified desert because we have irrigation and sprinklers and hoses and shrubbery and air conditioning. But, the desert is not a safe place to live, is it? And that's what the people would have understood who were hearing this story. Jesus was talking to people who lived in a very inhospitable place. Now, contrast that, the safety, with the thief who's climbing over that fence to kill and destroy. Now we're going to watch a video. I don't do that very often. This is a really great video. I want you to just enjoy it as we watch this right now. Then we'll continue with the message. If any of you want to watch that again later on when you get home or anything else, that's Ray Manderlon on Green Pastures, and his name and the website is listed on this week's devotional if you want to look at that again. Basically, what is he telling us? That our images of Psalm 23 are way off base, because I always picture this little alpine meadow in a little valley with a stream running through it. I mean, because that's kind of what, like up by Flagstaff or Show Low, some sweet little place up that we're familiar with. Not so. Those green pastures did not look very green to me. But what he was telling us unwraps this message in such a deeper way, does it not? Because, like he said, does God just plunk you down and belly deep alfalfa? You can tell he's from Michigan, alfalfa. He's got that Michigander accent. Right, and what happens if the sheep's in belly deep alfalfa? They die. So this spiritual message for us is so much more than God's going to keep me safe. Oh, yes. But God is going to keep me safe minute by minute by minute. Did you see how the shepherd girls were moving the sheep? There's another truth about the sheep. Sheep will overgraze so much that they will kill the vegetation. So you have to keep them moving so they can only chew it down to the roots, because if you let them, they will yank up the roots and eat the roots also, and then there's nothing. We're the sheep. We're the sheep. We'll go to the alfalfa and we'll eat something that's bad for us. We'll eat too much of a good thing until we kill it, ruin it. This is not a flattering parable, people. The fact that we need such intensive watching over is very humiliating and humbling. But Jesus also said, I'm there. I'm the one that will keep you safe. So there's the comforting. So let's take a look back at that. Who did Jesus address this story to? Do you remember? Verse 1 of John chapter 10. Feel free to get your Bibles out if you don't remember. Oh yeah, the Pharisees, those bad guys. It's not always them. The Pharisees is not always them. Sometimes the Pharisees is us. Oh, man, I wish she didn't say that. Yeah, but you know what? They didn't get it. They didn't understand it. They were so out of touch with their pastoral culture. The Pharisees were so out of touch with their sacred culture that they didn't remember what God had been telling them. They had always been a mostly nomadic people, moving from place to place to place because they lived in an inhospitable area, a culture that was not friendly. I mean, they were at war half of the time, right? And they had to fight for their existence, and they had to rely on God to lead them and to take care of them. And the Pharisees had forgotten this. They'd gotten all caught up in their power system, and we've got this, these are our rules, and you have to follow the rules, otherwise you're wrong. And Jesus would say, you got it all wrong, guys. And this is the way it is. And then he goes on and says, Jesus said it again. He gave him a second chance, right? He said it again. I am the gate. Everybody who tries to do it a different way, other than through God, is a thief or a robber. And the sheep weren't listening. There's a lot of prophets in the Old Testament to which the sheep did not listen. And Jesus was reminding them, you have a history, folks. Here's your chance to get it right now. Let's try it again. But they weren't listening. Therefore, because I am the gate, whoever enters through me. And what were Jesus' rules? Admit it. Admit that he was God. Believe. All throughout John's gospel, the fourth gospel, if you read it carefully, John will say, he believed, and it was counted as faith. He believed. He believed. So for John, what counts for faith is believing. So all anybody has to do is believe that what Jesus is saying is real and admit it. It's not hard. The rules are very easy for us. Not easy to live necessarily always, but they're easy for us to grasp. They're on a low shelf. We can get there from here. So anybody who believes that Jesus is the gate can go in through that gate. Anybody. Anybody, right? And they will find pasture. We're not going to be in that belly deep alfalfa that will kill us. We're going to be in a pasture that we need guidance through, that we need to be led, that we need constant caretaking. I loved watching the video with the little girls keeping the sheep moving. Did you see those trails that have been there for centuries? Doesn't that just kind of blow your mind? We're part of something that's been going on for a long time. It's not just us. We didn't make this up. We just kind of gathered ourselves and moved in on the rest of them that are already going along those trails. We have to keep going, otherwise it's not healthy. We have to eat only what the shepherd shows us is good. And then we have to keep following the shepherd. Keep following. And if we don't, then we will kill the good that is there. This is what Jesus is telling us. And the thief, he doesn't elaborate on that, and I'm kind of okay with that. The thief is only there to distract us, to take away what's good, to point us in the wrong direction. And then, verse number 10. Yes, this is our promise. Because I, the gatekeeper, the good shepherd, I have come to bring, yes, and the very best kind of life. And several of your translations have a phrase that you're more familiar with, life abundant, life full and free, life the best that you can, more than you can imagine. I mean, our imaginations aren't quite good enough to come up with what God has in store for us, what God has planned, what's available, the best kind of stuff. Yeah. When Jesus says, I am the gatekeeper and I am the shepherd, this is part of a set of expressions that Jesus uses in the book of John. It's called 7 I am statements. I am, and you've heard them all, but I'm going to just repeat them for you right now. I am the bread of life. He uses that in John chapter 6, the bread of life. We all need bread, even if we're gluten-free. We still need some kind of bread, some kind of pasta, a taco, a burrito, you name it. I want it. Bread. I am the bread of life because it's something so basic that everybody has to have. I am the light of the world. Try to imagine a world in which there's no light at all. Nothing. It's beyond my imagination. I can't. But Jesus is the one that brings life so that we can see what's good and what's bad, where we want to go and where we should not go. The light that only Jesus brings. He says, I am the gate for the sheep in chapter 10 that we just read. Got lost. I'm the good shepherd. Well, we want a good shepherd. We don't want a bad one. The good shepherd keeps the sheep moving, keeps the sheep in a safe place. What they need for that moment. As we just saw, he has the shepherd, he or she, those little shepherd girls, have to keep the sheep moving. And so the shepherd needs to know where to go, where the food is. Has to have the big picture. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life in John chapter 11. And that's the story about Mary and Martha and Lazarus. Jesus is the resurrection. And in chapter 14, he is the road, also the truth, also the life, the way. He's the way. And in chapter 15, Jesus is the real vine. If we're growing on something that does not produce fruit, then we're fruitless, right? There's no point to it. Jesus said he's also the real vine. Each of these metaphors, Jesus uses very simple language. And all throughout the book of John, you're not going to find any big 5, 6, 12 syllable words. John uses words that we know, that we can understand, in a way that we can understand them. These are words that we use every day in the kitchen and walking to class or driving to work. The types of words that we use in our everyday lives. These are the words that John used to show us that Jesus is for our lives every day, here and now, as well as in eternity. This simple grammar invites us into Jesus' life. And he's not trying to impress us with big concepts or flaunt his credentials. He doesn't want to give us this big show of authority. John says, okay, here's where we are, people. This is where we're living. So these simple words John uses to strike up a conversation. I am the bread of life, the bread that nourishes you. I am the light that illuminates you. I am the gate. As the gate opens and and invites you in. I'm the shepherd that takes good care of you and leads you. The life that raises you from the deadness that can be ours so easily. And as the truth that stabilizes us, as the vine that makes fruitfulness possible. He comes to us in the lowliest of ways and all for the highest good, for your good. One thing that strikes me as I read this passage is how attentive those shepherd girls were, how attentive our God is to our basic needs. I tend to think of God as having much better things to do than find the next blade of grass for me to chew on. Isn't that humbling to think about? He's got the whole universe to run, and yet he knows where the next clump is that I need to eat. So, those dumb sheep. I'm doing that because Chuck says I do it all the time. Maybe I do. We're the dumb sheep. Like I said, it's not a very flattering story, but okay, so we're dumb sheep. We need help. I need somebody to take care of me. So do you. We all do. We're not independent. Did you think you were? Sorry. No, we really do need God in our lives. We need a good shepherd. If we try to climb out over the gate, what's going to happen? There's bad stuff out there. There's wild animals. I might eat the wrong stuff. I might get lost. Stay there where the shepherd's taking care of you. So do you want to be safe? Do you want to be protected? Do you want all your needs satisfied? Only 2 of you? Really? Okay, it's coming on lunchtime. What if you didn't have lunch? What if you didn't have an opportunity for lunch? Come on, people. Use your imaginations. This is what Jesus is telling the Pharisees, and they didn't get it, so he told it to them again. Please get it the first time. We really need help. We need God. Okay, what do we need to do? We need to believe. We need to believe that Jesus is who Jesus said he was. Who did he say he was? The bread of life, the light of the world, the gatekeeper, the shepherd, the life, the road, the way, the truth, the fruitfulness, the vine. This is what Jesus said he was. We need to get in on that. Otherwise, we're hanging with the Pharisees who didn't get it. They're the bad guys. I don't want to wear the black hat. I'm sorry, Steve and I went to see Guardians of the Galaxy yesterday. Good guys, bad guys. Ask me later. Seriously. We need help. We need God. We're the sheep. We can't do it alone. We need a keeper. We need a keeper. Okay. I don't know if you believe me or not, but you really do need a keeper. And he's here and now, and he's asking for the job.